Each of these wrestlers has big team implications for the upcoming season. But who are the most impactful transfers for 2022? Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name is Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, your source for college wrestling news and discussion. And this will be talking about a Fanco 5 most impactful transfers of the upcoming season. And what I mean by impactful is that these are guys who have big team implications, whether it's for dual meets or conference or NCAA. These are guys, these are transfers who will actually really impact the team. So not necessarily just a big name transfer, but how does that big name translate into points at NCAAs or points in dual meets? Those are the most impactful transfers. That's what I mean by most impactful. So right off the bat, these are some of the guys who actually aren't on the top 5, but they are honorable mentions. Evan Wick, Elijah Cleary, that's a big transfer, exciting transfer. I mean, Evan Wick as well. Jared Verclaren, he announced his right around the time of NCAA, transferring from Penn State to Virginia. Austin Gomez is another big guy, as well as, I mean, just so many other transfers since then. But the reason why these guys aren't on the list is because they don't necessarily have huge team implications. And yes, I think each of these guys is going to be a big, I mean, they're huge for their team. Each of those guys, it's going to be big, exciting, more adding more points to the board for their team. But these top 5, I think, have a little bit more to be said for their team and really for their conference. And the first guy I want to start out here is Gas Tank Gary Traub, who's wrestling at Ohio State at heavyweight for the last couple of seasons. And actually, he filled in as the backup a couple years ago, but now in this past season, he did not start. Tate Orndorff, who actually transferred in from Utah Valley, got the start there. In 2020, though, he was a national qualifier. Of course, unfortunately, he didn't get to compete at the NCAA tournament. We don't know what's going to happen there. But the reason he is a impactful transfer is because Oregon State, he's transferring to Oregon State, okay? From Ohio State to Oregon State, transferring in. And Oregon State finished second in the Pac-12 last year behind Arizona State. Actually, even above Stanford. Last year's starter for Oregon State did not qualify for NCAAs. And Gas Tank Gary, who is a national qualifier in the Big Ten, I think can definitely qualify in the Pac-12 and just really increase the points for Oregon State. Now, is he going to be able to add enough points to beat Arizona State? I don't necessarily think so, but I do want to say that that's important because Oregon State's also transferring in a couple other guys, right? They have Gary Traub, they have Corey Crooks, who's coming from Arizona State, a national qualifier, and that's one guy who's basically flip-flopping from Oregon State to Arizona State to Oregon State. That's a big, exciting get for Oregon State, as well as Tanner Harvey, who's transferring in from American, another national qualifier. Each of these, I mean, that's going to be big for Oregon State. I don't know if they're going to be able to compete with Arizona State, but it's very impactful, as well as Joey Prada is another guy transferring from Virginia Tech to Oklahoma. Now, he last year was benched behind Sam Latona, although he was undefeated last season, 5-0 last season, national qualifier in 2020. And it's tough to be behind the guy, Sam Latona, who made a huge impact at Virginia Tech, a huge impact on the season. I mean, he was a huge reason why Virginia Tech was able to beat NC State last season, and he got onto the stand. But the reason he's impactful for Oklahoma is because Oklahoma's wrestler last year, their starter, did not qualify for NCAAs. Where Joey Prada, which I don't know if he would necessarily qualify. I mean, he qualified in 2020. I don't know what happened last year, but he qualified in 2020. So you got to assume that he is still that high caliber wrestler that Oklahoma is looking for. And if he can get qualified for the NCAA tournament, that's a big step up. That's very impactful for Oklahoma, who is in a tight race last year. I mean, they won Big 12s, but it was a tied race with Oklahoma State. So getting as many more points on the board is super important in their race, super impactful in the race for a conference championship. Now, Prada's best win was over an unranked Malik Heinzelman. That was actually a very big win at the time. It was unranked though, but still, he struggled against guys like Jack Mueller, but has had close bouts with Jacob Camacho, Drew Hildebrand. Hasn't beat him, but close matches with them. And he did well against other Big 12 competition in the past, though I do want to say he hasn't wrestled guys like Lamont, like Vega, like Mastro Giovanni, so he hasn't wrestled those top guys in the Big 12. It'll be interesting to see how he does against them, as well as Teskey. Failed to mention him. But before I get on to this top 3 and most impactful transfer of this past season, I got to talk about Nathan Tomasello, who's now training at Oklahoma and training with a lightweight like Joey Prada, can just help him really get to his full potential. And I think you're going to see some excitement from Joey Prada next year. And number 3, before we get to these last 2, and yeah, they are impactful. And you're like, well, Evan Wick wasn't on the list. Jared Verclaren wasn't on the list. Who the heck else can be there? Okay, well, Nathan Traxler is transferring from Stanford to Virginia Tech. This is huge. I mean, this is big. I debated putting him up even further. The main reason I didn't was because, so if he does get the start next year at heavyweight, the 4-time qualifier from Stanford, the reason I didn't is because Virginia Tech did have a national qualifier last year at the weight, unlike those other 2 schools, but they did, and Hunter Katka. Now, Traxler actually made it further. He advanced further at the NCAA tournament, so he scored more points for Stanford than Hunter Katka did for Virginia Tech last year. But also, Traxler, he made the blood round twice. He's around a 16 finish in the past. And this is his final year to get onto the scene. I think he's going to do it. But one of the things he said actually in his tweet was, after 5 years and 2 degrees, I could not be more thankful for my time at Stanford. I had the best coaches and teammates, and I'm grateful for every opportunity they gave me. With one last year of eligibility, I'm extremely excited to finish my career at Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. And of course, after the craziness that happened at Stanford this past year, I mean, it's kind of crazy, and maybe he just wanted to move, get somewhere else, get some different training in to hopefully get onto the stand, and this may be his opportunity to do it. I think with that blood round finish, it's going to be big. But also, you can't forget about the Virginia Tech and NC State race, the huge battle in the ACC between those 2 teams. With Traxler at heavyweight now, I mean, he pinned NC State's heavyweight at the NCAA tournament, who was the ACC champ. Imagine those points getting added onto the board at the ACC tournament and in the dual meet. I mean, those are impactful points. Wilson was somebody who he actually defeated Virginia Tech's wrestler last year, Katka, in the ACC finals. So if Traxler can beat him, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for dual meet, huge for the ACC tournament. I mean, NC State ran away with ACCs last year, but I mean, with a transfer like Traxler, that's big. Max Dean, yes, he is on this list from Cornell to Penn State, and I debated where to put him. I mean, originally I was like, oh, no doubt in my mind. I mean, Max Dean, number 1, most impactful, but you have to think about this. Yes, he's impactful. He's an exciting transfer for Penn State fans, unfortunate for Cornell fans, but as a 2019 NCAA finalist, this is huge, right? This is huge. And he plans to bump up to 197 pounds. But when we talk about impact, Penn State did have an All-American there in Michael Beard. Michael Beard put points on the board. They both have similar bonus point percentages, and that's why I think it's impactful, but not a crazy get, right? Like if Penn State had a non-qualifier at 197, that'd be a different story. I mean, this would be massive, getting another finals. I think the reason that this is so impactful is because Penn State could have 5 champs next year. They could do it again with Rome Bravo Young, Nick Lee, Carter Sirachi, Aaron Brooks, Max Dean. That could happen again. That would be wild. I mean, it's going to be tough, but I think that's the main reason why Max Dean's transfer is so impactful. So who's number 1? Who's number 1? Cal Parco of Arizona State. Actually was from Fresno State, but now that Fresno's dropped their program, he's transferred to Arizona State. Now, he wrestled 49 last year, All-American, got on the stand. It will likely drop to 141 because Jesse Vasquez is at 149 for the Sun Devils. Now, he already has a win over a former Pac-12 champ, not Big 12, Pac-12 champ in Grant Willits of Oregon State. So, like I said, this race between Arizona State and Oregon State in the Pac-12 is very interesting. But now that Kyle Parco is here, he has a win over a Pac-12 champ. That's big. He's already got on the stand. He's already All-American. And Arizona State will go from a non-qualifier now to an All-American. And I don't know if he'll get back on the stand this year, but I mean, he's got a good chance. He did it last year. That's huge points for Arizona State, who finished last year behind Oklahoma State. This Kyle Parko transfer could just get Arizona State to where they want to be at the NCAA tournament. And I mean, that's huge. That's huge for a team like Arizona State. Now, if you're interested in some of the top winning streaks that are currently active in the NCAA, you're going to want to check out this video right here where I dive deep into those top winning streaks out of the entire NCAA.